I stood in my mom's bedroom doorway, holding the dress she'd left on her bed. In 30 minutes, I'd walk downstairs wearing it. In 30 minutes, everything would change. But here's what nobody tells you about the moment you stop pretending. You can't unsee what you finally allow yourself to see. My hands were shaking. Not from fear exactly, but from something I didn't have a word for yet. The dress was simple, navy blue with small white flowers, nothing dramatic, but it might as well have been made of lightning for how it felt in my hands. The house was quiet, except for the sound of my mom moving around downstairs. My dad was away again, 3 weeks into a 6-week work assignment in Singapore. He was a project manager for an engineering firm, always traveling, always missing the small moments that made up our lives. And now, he was about to miss the most important moment of my 17 years on this planet. Part of me was relieved he wasn't here. The other part knew this was just delaying the inevitable. Because after tonight, after I walked down those stairs, there would be no going back. And eventually I'd have to face him with the truth. But first, I had to face myself. Let me tell you who I was supposed to be. Jamie Matthews. 17. Year 12 student at Westfield Academy. Midfielder for the school football team. Not the best player, but decent enough that nobody questioned whether I belonged there. I had mates. I had the grades to keep my parents satisfied and the social camouflage to keep everyone else from looking too closely. To the world, I was just another teenage boy navigating the awkward terrain between childhood and whatever came next. But the world only saw the daylight version of me. Every evening, around 7 o'clock, my mom would leave for her shift at Royal Manchester Hospital. She was a nurse, the kind who stayed late when they were short-staffed, who brought home stories about patients that made her eyes go soft with concern. Her shifts usually ran until 3 in the morning, sometimes later, which meant I had 8 hours. 8 hours when the house was mine. 8 hours when I could be someone else. Or maybe 8 hours when I could be myself. It started small, the way these things always do. 2 years ago, I'd convinced myself I was just curious, just experimenting, just trying to understand something I couldn't quite name. I'd slip into my mom's room when she was at work, open her wardrobe, and run my fingers along the fabrics. Silk blouses, cotton dresses, wool skirts that whispered when they moved. The first time I tried something on, I told myself it was a one-time thing, an itch I needed to scratch so I could move on with my life. But you know how this story goes, don't you? Because if it had been a one-time thing, I wouldn't be standing here right now, holding this dress, about to walk downstairs and change everything. Over 2 years, my secret evenings became a ritual. I'd wait until I heard my mom's car pull out of the drive, give it 10 minutes to be safe, then climb the stairs to her bedroom like I was approaching a shrine. I learned which clothes fit my frame, how to move in heels without stumbling, how to apply the minimal makeup I dared to try. I watched tutorials on my phone with the volume turned down to almost nothing, terrified someone would hear. I became an expert at covering my tracks. Clothes returned to exactly the right position on the hanger. Makeup products wiped clean of fingerprints. Browser history deleted, though I always forgot the save passwords and autocomplete suggestions that piled up like digital breadcrumbs. I thought I was being so careful, but tonight, everything unraveled. I came home from football practice around 5:30, sweaty and exhausted, and went straight to the family computer in the living room. My phone had died, and I wanted to check something. A dress I'd seen in a shop window that morning on the way to school. Burgundy, knee-length, with 3/4 sleeves. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled up the shop's website, started browsing, got lost in the way I always did, clicking through categories, imagining myself in different outfits, building a wardrobe in my mind that I'd never actually own. I was so absorbed I didn't hear my mom's car in the drive, didn't hear the front door open, didn't hear her footsteps in the hallway until she was right behind me, saying my name. Jamie? I slammed the laptop shut so hard I thought I'd broken it. My heart was trying to punch its way out of my chest. When I turned around, my mom was standing there in her nurse's scrubs, her bag still over her shoulder, her face carefully neutral. "Shift got canceled," she said quietly. "Overstaffed tonight." We stood there for what felt like an hour but was probably 10 seconds. I waited for her to ask, waited for the confrontation, the questions, the disappointment that would reshape her face when she looked at me. But she didn't say anything, just gave me this small, sad smile and walked upstairs. I sat frozen on the sofa, my mind spinning through every possible scenario. She'd seen the website. She knew. Of course she knew. The question was what she'd do with that knowledge. 20 minutes later, she came back downstairs, car keys in hand. "I need to run an errand," she said too casually. "Need anything?" I shook my head, unable to form words. She left. I heard the car pull away, and then I did what I always did when panic threatened to swallow me whole. I went upstairs to my room, closed the door, and tried to convince myself it would be fine. It was only later, when I went to the bathroom, that I saw it. My mom's bedroom door was open. The lamp on her bedside table was on, casting warm light across the bed. And there, laid out carefully like an invitation, was a dress, navy blue. Small white flowers. Simple. Beautiful. Next to it, a note on her personal stationery. "If you want to talk, I'll be downstairs. If you want to try it, I'll wait." That's when time stopped. That's when I realized there was no more hiding. I picked up the note and read it 3 more times, each time hoping the words would change into something less terrifying, less real. They didn't. My mom knew. She'd known, probably for longer than just tonight, and instead of confronting me, instead of shame or anger or confusion, she'd left me a dress and a choice. I could pretend I didn't see it. Could go back to my room, close the door, and never speak of this moment again. Or I could try it on. I could walk downstairs. I could finally, after 17 years and 2 years of secret evenings, tell the truth. The dress felt impossibly light in my hands, like it might dissolve if I held it too tight. But first, before I could make that choice, I needed you to understand something. I needed you to understand how I got here. Close your eyes for a moment and go back with me. I was 7 years old, sitting cross-legged on the scratchy carpet of my primary school gymnasium, watching my cousin Emma's ballet recital. She was 9, and she moved across that makeshift stage like she was made of something lighter than the rest of us. Her costume sparkled under the fluorescent lights, pink tulle and silver sequins that caught every movement. I couldn't look away. All the other boys in my class were bored, fidgeting, whispering about football and video games. But I was transfixed. Not because I wanted to be near Emma, but because I wanted to be Emma. I wanted to know what it felt like to move like that, to wear something that beautiful, to exist in a body that was allowed to be graceful. After the recital, my mom asked me what I thought. "It was brilliant," I said. She smiled. "You really liked it, didn't you?" I nodded, but I didn't tell her the rest. Didn't tell her that I'd spent the entire drive home imagining myself in that pink costume, imagining what it would feel like to spin and leap and be applauded for something beautiful instead of something strong. That was the first time I felt it, that disconnect between who I was and who I was supposed to be. Fast forward 4 years. I was 11, standing in my mom's bedroom on a random Wednesday afternoon, homesick from school with a stomach bug that wasn't quite bad enough to keep me in bed. My mom was downstairs making soup. I was bored, restless, and I wandered into her room the way curious kids do. Her wardrobe was open. A silk scarf was draped over the chair by her vanity, emerald green with gold edges. I picked it up, felt the cool slide of the fabric between my fingers. And before I could talk myself out of it, I wrapped it around my neck and looked in the mirror. It was just a scarf, but for the first time in my life, I saw someone in that mirror who felt right. Not a boy, not a girl, just me. I wore it for maybe 30 seconds before panic set in, and I put it back, heart racing, like I'd found something I wasn't allowed to be. I started secretly browsing fashion websites during lunch, hiding my phone screen from my mates. I started watching online videos about style and makeup, always with headphones, always ready to close the tab if anyone came near. I was obsessed. Not in a healthy, curious way, but in the desperate way you're obsessed with something you think you're not allowed to have. Which brings me back to now. To the dress. To the decision. I stood in my mom's doorway for I don't know how long. 5 minutes. 10. Long enough for my legs to start aching. And then, finally, I stepped inside. The dress felt heavier now that I was actually going to put it on, not physically. It was still that light, soft cotton, but emotionally. This wasn't like all the other times, when I could tell myself it was just experimenting, just curiosity, just a phase I'd grow out of. This time, my mom was downstairs waiting. This time, there would be consequences. This time, it was real. I closed the door, locked it, even though I knew my mom wouldn't come up. I needed that barrier, that one last moment of safety before everything changed. I picked up the dress, Here's what nobody tells you about that moment. The moment you finally put on the thing you've been dreaming about. It's not magical. It's not some instant transformation where everything clicks into place and orchestral music swells in the background. It's terrifying. My hands were shaking so badly I struggled with the zip. When I finally got it up, I stood there, not looking at the mirror yet, just feeling. The fabric against my skin. Cotton, soft, worn in from being washed 100 times. The way it hung on my frame, skimming my body instead of constricting it. The slight weight of it moving when I shifted from foot to foot. I took a breath, opened my eyes, looked at the mirror, and stopped breathing entirely. Because the person looking back at me wasn't a boy in a dress, it was me, not Jamie, the normal teenage son. Not Jamie, the one who spent every day performing a role he didn't audition for. Just me, the person I'd been catching glimpses of in reflections and shop windows and bathroom mirrors for years. The person I'd been too scared to acknowledge. I touched my face, and the person in the mirror touched theirs. I smoothed the dress over my hips, and they did the same. I smiled, tentatively, and they smiled back. And for the first time in my entire life, I felt like my outsides matched my insides. I stood there for a long time, long enough that my mom probably wondered if I'd changed my mind. Long enough to memorize every detail of this moment, because I knew I'd need to remember it later when things got hard. Then I unlocked the door. The walk to the stairs felt like a lifetime. Every step was deliberate, heavy, final. The house was so quiet I could hear the old floorboards creaking under my feet. Could hear my own breathing, rapid and shallow. At the top of the stairs I paused. This was it. The last moment I could turn back. But when I thought about going back to my room, peeling off this dress and pretending this never happened, something in my chest physically hurt. So I went down. She was in the kitchen, just like the note said she'd be. Making tea. 2 mugs already out on the counter. One for her, one for me. She heard me on the stairs. I know she did, because she went very still for half a second before continuing to pour the boiling water like nothing unusual was happening. Like her son didn't just walk into the kitchen wearing one of her dresses. I stood in the doorway, frozen. Couldn't make myself walk all the way in. Couldn't make myself speak. She turned around, tea towel in hand, and looked at me. Really looked at me. And then she smiled. Small. Sad. But real. "Milk and 1 sugar, yeah?" she said, like this was any other evening. I nodded. Couldn't trust my voice. She made my tea, brought both mugs to the kitchen table, and sat down. Gestured to the chair across from her. I sat. Kept my eyes on the table, on the mug, on anything except her face. "Jamie," she said gently, "look at me." I couldn't. If I looked at her, I'd break. And I wasn't ready to break yet. "Sweetheart, please." I looked up. She wasn't angry, wasn't disgusted, wasn't any of the things I'd been terrified of seeing in her eyes. She just looked tired and loving and sad in a way that made my chest ache. "How long have you felt like this?" she asked. Such a simple question. But it opened a floodgate. "I don't know," I managed. My voice came out rough, strangled. "Years. Since I was little. I tried to make it go away. I tried to be normal. I tried." My voice broke. I pressed my palms against my eyes, willing myself not to cry. "I tried so hard, Mom. I don't know what's wrong with me." I heard her chair scrape back, felt her arms around me a second later, pulling me into a hug that made me feel 6 years old again. "There's nothing wrong with you," she said fiercely. "Do you hear me? There's nothing wrong with you." And that's when I broke. Properly broke. 17 years of holding it together dissolved into tears. I'd been too afraid to cry. I sobbed into my mom's shoulder while she held me and whispered that it was okay, that I was safe, that she loved me. When I finally calmed down enough to breathe normally, she pulled back and handed me a tissue. "I need you to listen to me," she said. I nodded, wiping my face. "I've known for a while," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "About 4 months ago, I found makeup tutorials in the browser history. At first, I thought maybe you were looking them up for a girlfriend or for a school project. But then I noticed little things. Clothes in my wardrobe moved slightly, my makeup used and then carefully put back. The way you looked at women's fashion in shop windows." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have." "Stop," she said firmly. "You're not in trouble, Jamie. I'm not angry. I I wanted to give you space to tell me when you were ready. I don't want to force you into a conversation you weren't prepared for." I stared at her. "So you've known for months?" "I suspected," she corrected. "But tonight, when I saw that website, I knew for certain. And I realized that if I didn't do something, you might never feel safe enough to tell me." She reached across the table and took my hand. "So I left the dress," she said, "because I wanted you to know that whatever you're going through, whatever you need to tell me, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." We talked for hours after that. I told her things I'd never told anyone, about the ballet recital when I was 7, about the scarf when I was 11, about the music practices where I finally felt like myself, about the shame and the fear and the constant, exhausting performance of being someone I wasn't. She listened to all of it. Didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened. And then, when I'd finally run out of words, she said to me, "So whatever this is," she said, gesturing at the dress, at me, at the space between us, "we'll figure it out. Together. At your pace. On your terms. I don't have all the answers, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes. But I promise you, Jamie, you're my child, and I love you exactly as you are." That night, I didn't take off the dress for hours. We sat at the kitchen table, drinking tea that went cold and then heating up fresh mugs, talking about everything and nothing. My mom asked questions. Gentle, thoughtful questions about how I felt, what I wanted, whether I'd thought about talking to a counselor who specialized in these things. She didn't push, just offered options, possibilities, a roadmap through territory neither of us knew how to navigate. "What about Dad?" I asked eventually, the question I'd been avoiding all night. Her face clouded slightly. "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. He's not due back for another week. That gives us time." "Time for what?" "Time for you to figure out what you want to say to him. Time for me to figure out how to support you through that conversation. Time to just breathe." She reached across and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture so motherly, so tender, that I nearly started crying again. When I finally went upstairs around midnight, I folded the dress carefully and placed it on my desk chair. I didn't hide it, didn't shove it back in my mom's wardrobe and pretend this never happened. Because it did happen. And something fundamental had shifted. I had a mom who knew. A mom who loved me. A mom who was choosing to stand beside me instead of against me. And for the first time in 2 years, maybe for the first time in my entire life, I felt like I could breathe. But as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, one thought kept circling through my mind. My dad would be home in 4 weeks, and eventually I'd have to face him with the truth. If this resonated with you, please share your story in the comments. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is just be yourself. You're not alone, you're not broken, and you deserve to live as the fullest version of yourself. Thank you for listening. The end? The Gender Diary exists to light that path with shared stories. Whether you found connection in this narrative, you're on your own journey of gender exploration, or you're here seeking understanding, your subscription fuels our mission. Every subscriber empowers us to keep illuminating these authentic experiences for our community. Kindly drop a comment below. Your voice adds to the tapestry of experiences that makes this space meaningful. Until our next story unfolds.